So I recently made a video called The Rise of the Republicans about 5 days ago, and I have listened to this video several times, and maybe I'm being too dismissive, maybe I'm being insensitive to those who support Donald Trump, but I don't believe for a second that anything I actually said in the video, and I'm gonna bet that most of these people watched maybe like a few minutes of the actual video, which will be linked in the description. Most of these people are just absolutely, their criticisms are nonsense. This guy says, I'm going to be happier in the next 4 years, and naturally I'm going to hope so. He says I'll have more money in my pocket as an added bonus, and I hope so. I ain't going to complain about more money in my pocket. Quit complaining and ride the big red wave, dude, he says. First of all, there was no red wave. Granted, he did win more votes and support than ever before, so I mean, that clearly says that, a clear plurality of Americans actually sided with this man. And I have said in that video, and I've said in, I think even the video of the downfall of the Democrats, which of course these guys aren't complaining about the criticisms I have had of the Democrats in that video. Of course they won't. I said that I accepted that he won. Obviously, I'm not enthused, but he will be president. My reaction in 2016 was the same. Disappointed, but I accepted that he won because I don't want my country to fail. Surprise, surprise, I was disappointed with Joe Biden being elected president in 2020, but I accepted it because, one, the public had spoken, made it very clear who they wanted, and two, I'm not a sore loser, so I just wonder how much more money I'm going to have in my pocket when his tariffs will increase consumer prices, and Donald Trump said that he couldn't promise that would not happen. Trump isn't a Republican, this next person says. The Republicans are as pathetic as the Democrats. Absolutely. Trump is just an enigma, like him or hate him. We will be back to the Romney versus Clinton show in 4 years. And sadly, I think that's going to be the case. I think even if J.D. Vance is nominated by the Republicans, I feel like he will probably not win a general election unless the Democrats pick a particularly bad candidate like Gavin Newsom. And let's be honest, they probably will. If they don't, then maybe that's a sign that they actually have a learning curve. But when they lose to Donald Trump twice, that tells me that they don't have much of a learning curve. Trump, he's not a Republican. He is whatever it takes to get elected. He's not pro-life. He's not pro-choice. He is whatever it takes to get elected. He's not against marijuana or for it. It's whatever will get him elected. Then this person says, you're repeating what the media says about him versus what he actually says. Well, I listen to his rallies, and sometimes he actually says some things where I can say, I agree with that. That's fair. Yes, we need to cut spending. Too bad he doesn't do it. This is a guy who increased the national debt by $8 trillion in one term. It took Obama 2 terms to increase it by 10. The type of people you get your info from just paid him $15 million for slander and libel. First of all, I don't use those people as sources. I take what he actually says. They didn't need to take him out of context when he said they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists in 2015. I didn't need them taking him out of context when he said they're eating the dogs and cats. And the thing that drives me crazy is this following sentence. He isn't trying to burn the whole system down. He just wants to fix the worst parts of it, which we really need done. When I said that the public voted for a candidate who would burn the system down, I'm talking about the idea of burning the system down is an attractive thing across the political spectrum. They don't want the system as it is. They would burn it down rather than keep it in place as it is. And besides, he had 4 years already, and this is the thing you Trump supporters need to understand, is this man had 4 years to drain the swamp, and yet he didn't. Why? He trusted the wrong people for his cabinet. Of course he did. Appointing neoconservatives to be Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, financial cronies for Secretary of the Treasury or Commerce, or Small Business Administration, or people who don't know what they're talking about for government posts just because they said nice things about him. The people who care about his smack talking are the ones with first world problems. Well, I'd say a number of people who voted for Trump on all this cultural stuff are the ones with first world problems. The economy, more than anything else, was the biggest issue of the election, and I'm not surprised he won among those who said the economy was their biggest issue. And when I said that people want to burn the system down, they don't feel listened to. They feel powerless. And yeah, they'll vote for someone who they think would burn the system down. I frankly don't see what he's saying as any different from wanting to burn the system down. And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. Like, yes, I want him to implement Schedule F. I want him to be able to fire the civil service. I think, frankly, if you're a civil servant, your job should end when the president leaves office, the president who hired you, unless the incoming president says, this particular person should stay in this job. I don't think there's anything that should be controversial about that at all. Those of us being crushed by the system don't have the privilege to focus on trivial things like mean tweets. I didn't even focus on that. All I said was that if he would have just shut his mouth and done the job he was hired to do, I'm convinced he would have been reelected. If he would have just focused on what the people who voted for him to secure the border and to cut taxes and appoint conservatives to the bench, I am convinced if he would have just done that, he would have been reelected. Rather than picking stupid, pointless fights with people. Because to me, if he would have just ignored the critics, this person said something about me on Twitter, just ignore it. This is a 78-year-old man now. If he would have just focused, he would have been reelected, and I have no doubt he would have been reelected. I mean, this is a man with a notoriously poor attention span. So, I'm not surprised that he was so easy for the Democrats to sabotage and run around in his first term, and I have no doubt it's going to happen again. And besides, a lot of the things that need fixing in this country, he's already said he won't. He's not going to tackle the fact that Social Security is going to go bankrupt. He's not going to try in the slightest to get that done. So, all these people saying that he's going to do this great job, I say I hope he does. I don't want any president to fail, but I'm not convinced that he's learned from his mistakes in his first term. The one policy that I appreciated was the desire to get the impoundment power back. But anyway, you can't imagine why people voted for him because you don't have our problems and thus our priorities. First of all, you don't know how I live. You do not know what I go through. So I'm not interested in you trying to understand where I'm coming from. I can easily imagine why people voted for him. I've been hearing this for 8 years at this point, is people, their quality of life has gone down. And it's a pretty simple premise to say that when someone's quality of life goes down, they want to punish the party in power. In 2016, he was the beneficiary. He was not the president. He was an outsider. In 2020, he was defeated for re-election because he was the incumbent, and the quality of life went down because of COVID and the recession and the lockdowns that he allowed to take place. People voted for him because of the Supreme Court. Sometimes that might be just the biggest issue for somebody, and I get that. I really do, and I appreciated the conservative judges he appointed. I just wish he would have been, more consistent, because he even backstabbed his own voters, which is why I think maybe in 2020 he was defeated for re-election, is there were those who said he's not consistent on the border, he's not consistent on guns, he's not consistent on abortion, he's a flip-flopper. What's the use of a flip-flopper? He has the impression of a couch, the last person that sat on him. That's a quote from Ann Coulter, by the way. You know what my priorities for making this country better? A strong, sound dollar, balanced budgets, actually reducing government spending, appointing conservatives to the bench, amending the Constitution to gut the deep state. I used to not believe it was a thing, but I'm convinced at this point it is, given that You have unelected bureaucrats who have the ability to stop a sitting president. I'm not saying they have to be subordinate to him, like complete and total loyalty to that person. But sometimes a president should be able to say to a bureaucrat, you're just a bureaucrat, you know. No one's ever heard of you. You have no real ability to understand some of these big problems. You know, yeah, I'll hear you out what you got to say, but I'm going to go around you if at the end of the day, if I don't agree with you, you know, there's important checks and balances, and I'm convinced that there will be some important checks and balances that will be tested, but will prevail. The courts rule against him sometimes, so I don't think they're necessarily in his pocket. It looks like you're at least trying to be fair, but you really need to get better sources of info. Well, explain. Okay, what exactly did I say that was so objectionable here? I didn't focus that heavily on the mean tweets because, that's just who he is. He's not going to change. He's 78 years old. People at that age don't change. And I didn't focus that much on the smack talking. Like, I talked a fair bit about policy and how the campaign, yes, his campaign was disgraceful. And if that's all you have to say is you're focusing too much on it, at least you're admitting that, yeah, it was disgraceful, because you couldn't argue against that. Then some guy named Jimmy Lopez just put LOL, so, that means that he's, frankly, he's not equipped to talk about anything, because that's all he could wrap his fingers around trying to type in the comments. Then Joshua, whatever that name is, says, your video sucks, get help. Well, no. You can't explain why it sucks, so that just tells me that you don't know what you're talking about. 90% of this video is BS, says whoever this person is. And apparently, he can't actually explain why. Then, and I already responded to it in full right here, we're so lucky that Trump won. Why exactly? He's just going to let the Democrats roll him around. He's going to let the Congress just roll him around. And if you're wondering, if these Trump supporters wonder, what would I want him to do, is just have some more discipline. Just focus on what your base voted for you on. And some stuff he could probably get some kind of compromises on, where you could say, certain issues, it's like, 60% of the country would support it, and maybe he could pressure the Democrats on that. That's a possibility. He might be able to rework his inaugural tax bill. I mean, I would hope he would. But I am strictly a policy person. I really don't care about his personal life. People kept saying, I didn't vote for him for his personal life, and then they want to go after the personal lives of his opponents and the Bidens, and they have no consistency. But he is going to fail again because he didn't learn from why his first term didn't go so well and why he didn't get a second consecutive term. Then this person, who probably has the attention span of Donald Trump, said, Teal dear, or too long didn't watch, this guy is butthurt that Trump won. So apparently, you are not allowed to criticize Trump in any way or disagree with him or propose an alternative to what he wants to do, because apparently, according to these people, that if you ever disagree with their Lord Emperor Orange Jesus, that apparently you're butthurt that he won. I mean, in my live stream of the election, it was pretty clear that Kamala Harris was going to lose. You didn't hear me getting upset about that. I was like, well, she is going to lose, and the fact she's trailing, or, she's only ahead of him by a little bit in certain deep blue states, says to me that she's probably going to lose. And I was right. Good, sir, if you can't complain if you threw your vote in the trash can. Well, I didn't throw my vote in the trash can. I actually voted. My home state was won by Donald Trump by 22 points. It was actually one of the smallest swings in his favor, and it was the best performance of his in the state in any of his 3 runs, and he is the only Republican, as far as I could find, who won the White House twice without winning 60% of the vote in Utah, which I find to be interesting because this is a heavily Republican state, and he is the first Republican to win 2 terms, or to win the state twice without winning 60% of the vote either time, since I think William Howard Taft in 1912. Then this person, who of course doesn't understand what he's talking about, he apparently these people think I voted for Kamala Harris, even though I said I voted for Chase Oliver. So, I mean, these people clearly don't know what they're talking about. And I wouldn't expect any less from some of these people. Not every Trump supporter is dumb. I've had some meaningful conversations with some Trump supporters, but too many are like this, where apparently if you don't vote for Trump, apparently you're voting for Harris. Well, if that's the case, the Electoral College would have been a Trump victory with a slightly smaller margin. Michigan and Wisconsin would have voted for her by their logic. And in fact, by their logic, Joe Biden would have won North Carolina. Hillary Clinton would have won the White House by their logic. Not voting for Trump is a vote for the Democrats. We understand you vote a third party. The problem with independents like you, first of all, these people can't even spell independence correctly. You get nothing done because you can't tell the lesser of two evils, so you don't vote for neither. That's the difference between silly independents like you and real independents like me. I vote Trump even though I would rather him than this mutated Democrat party we have now. Democrats are unelectable. Well, yeah, they're unelectable because they keep pandering to a bunch of urban city dwellers, and they don't try to actually talk to people. And I literally said that Trump, in terms of outreach to people, did a phenomenal job. Of these people, of course, anything I say that is in agreement or saying anything positive, they ignore it. They only focus on the critical stuff, acting as if that was the only thing I said. Who are you, and why should anyone listen to anything you say? You are a grifter and clearly don't know what you're talking about. Also, clearly a Democrat, not an independent. Stay in your lane. I mean, this guy clearly can't type in proper English. First of all, you clicked on this video. You actually listened to what I had to say. So clearly it meant something to you. And calling me a grifter, I've been a libertarian for almost 8 years now. So, I mean, and I don't do this for money. I do political videos just to state an opinion. Maybe someone might watch, maybe someone won't. They'll like it or they don't like it. I really don't care. Don't understand why you need to call Vance a grifter. People can change their mind, especially after how many years? Like 8? Look, it's okay to change your mind. It is okay to say you were wrong or to say you don't agree with something you used to say. That is perfectly fine. But given the fact that even as recently as 4 years ago, he called Donald Trump the emperor, after almost 4 years of Trump at the time, it's like, I'd like to know, when exactly did he change his mind? When exactly did he say, yeah, he's cool and everything, like, of course he would do it for the Senate run. And then here's this guy who also is completely way off base. The vibe I get from this, someone who wants to come across as being fair-minded, calm, and rational while simultaneously being deeply angry about and biased against Republicans. I don't have the benefit of knowing your true state of mind, of course, but in case it's useful feedback, that it sort of presents my opinion. And it's like, how exactly did I come off as angry or biased? And of course he didn't see the other video, the downfall of the Democrats. These guys, of course, didn't, because if they did, they would understand I gave some pretty firm and fair criticisms of the Democrats. Because again, and I'll say it here, they had $1 billion put into this campaign. They had initially a healthy standing in the polls. It was narrow, but it was healthy. If they would have just talked about the issues, answered people's questions, sit down for interviews, even if it's awkward, go on podcasts. He did it. Donald Trump did it, and he won. Now, that's not to say that if he didn't, he would have lost, but he was willing to talk to people. She wasn't. She also had the inherent disadvantage of being the sitting vice president of a historically unpopular president. That's why she lost, is because when you're the sitting VP of an administration people want to get rid of, you're already going to be in a tough situation. People who do not have kids do not have the same skin of the game. Well, of course. Now they're going to say it's the same skin. Being a dog parent isn't the same thing. Being an uncle isn't the same thing. Don't believe me, ask your parents, ask your siblings that do have kids. Okay. When I hear most of these people argue about, people who don't have children, they'll say they don't have skin in the game, period. Now, I know that's not every Trump supporter, so I'm going to get that across. And I wasn't trying to invalidate his argument. I'm not saying that they have the exact same skin in the game. I don't disagree. That's why I didn't acknowledge it, is because I agree. They don't have the same skin in the game. All I said was being a dog parent is not a real thing because, I think it's just a stupid term for those who want to compensate for the fact they don't have kids. I don't hate those who have kids or not. There's nothing wrong with you having kids or not. As for being an uncle, yeah, I'm a proud uncle. And I care about my nieces and nephews, and I care about their parents, and I very much want a good future for them. I know that's not the same thing as being a parent. And I don't disagree with Stephen Thompson with this comment. That's why I only responded to I do not believe dog parents are a thing, is because, well, I think that's a stupid term. So I didn't disagree. But I think that when these people say they don't have any skin in the game, for those who say it, it's stupid. And then these two I'm just going to ignore because it's like, frankly, I didn't disagree with the premise. I just focused on the part I actually did disagree with, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Then this person starts talking about videos they see on social media as if we should always believe what we see on social media. And I'm not worried about if someone's going to call me, make accusations against me without any kind of standing or reason. All I said was I'm not going to stereotype people for the bad actions of a few. I literally have said that when people say they choose the bear, that's a stupid thing to say. And then you had the governor and you had the Springfield city manager contradicting Vance's claims, and having no reports of these attacks on animals by those in the immigrant community. And as for why Aurora said there wasn't illegal gangs taking over an apartment, and then later saying that they were. You don't understand that people would lie for the party. Isn't this... I don't know if the Springfield city manager is a Republican. But the governor of Ohio is a Republican. So, there's that. But as far as... And here's the thing about the whole eating dogs and cats thing is... Obviously, anyone who does anything like that should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But the ramifications of the accusation being made, there were people getting death threats and being accused of doing that who didn't do it. And those people deserve to be given the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And of course, when these people get stereotyped and smeared for those things, of course, people are going to criticize those who started this whole thing. A vote for Donald Trump in this election, from those who aren't still convinced, was a repudiation of the last trash 4 years. If COVID, lockdowns, and mandates had been on the ballot, that person would have done great. I truly had expected the Libertarian Party to provide a candidate like that, but alas, Chase was nominated. Yeah, like I said, I really wish they hadn't nominated him just because he is a parody of the Libertarian left, I swear. Obviously, Donald Trump is a politician and not a savior, but all the corrupt agencies, branches of government, and mainstream media despise him. So in my book, that makes him better than any other candidate that was on the ticket. And honestly, I feel there's a movement growing in this country of people waking up to the nonsense. Donald Trump isn't the wrecking ball. He's the truck that brings it to the job site. You don't need a good portion of his voters to credit in being able to see the writing on the wall. You don't give a good portion. I literally don't know how else I can say this, that the reason the administration did not, that the incumbent White House party was defeated was historically unpopular sitting president. His vice president is heading the ticket. People are angry. They feel powerless. And they're going to lash out. Their quality of life has gone down, so they're going to lash out against the governing party. Literally every country in the world, with the exception of Ireland and Mexico, the ruling party lost support or lost the election. So, in Mexico, this governing party actually gained support, and in Ireland, it was kind of a draw, kind of a wash. But either the governing party would lose the election or would get a lot less support than before. And it's across the political spectrum. And then this person, Mr. Merchant, says the good thing about Trump winning the 2024 election is that he can't run again. Thank God, because I'm really tired of having to deal with economic nationalists wanting to raise prices in this country just because they don't like free trade. This election and the 2020 election proves that both as hypocrites, because in 2016 the Democrats said it was rigged and not their president, while the Republicans said that Trump was your president. And then in 2020 the roles were reversed, and in this election it went back to the 2016 sides. The MAGA movement tends to understand the problem that endless wars are not a good idea, and the war on drugs is a failure, but they aren't libertarian and are economically illiterate. They support authoritarian ideas like banning the burning of the flag because of their blind nationalism, and anyone that disagrees with them is labeled as a leftist or a rhino, even if said person doesn't follow in either. I also agree now that Republicans want a majority in each branch of government, and they have no excuse to not do anything that they said they would do, though I won't be surprised if they don't do anything at all. There we go. But yeah, most of these people are just completely off base. They can't actually take anything I said and actually go with it. And then people started arguing about if the election of 2020 was stolen, which it was not. I mean, they've had 4 years to prove it, and of course they didn't. Well, anyway, this video was longer than I expected. I don't know how long it went on for, and I think it's gone on long enough. So I will see you guys later on.